stepped up and helped me out when I was reeling, trying to just get organized.
Excellent. All right, well, we're gonna get started. More people will come in. That's great. Hi, everyone. My name is Don Saucier. I'm the Faculty Associate Director of the Teaching and Learning Center. We're going to begin our session today with a land acknowledgement.
All right, let me share my screen and hopefully sound. Does that look right to everybody? Okay, thank you.
As the first land-grant institution established under the 1862 Morrill Act, we acknowledge that the state of Kansas is, historically, home to many native nations, including the Kaw, Osage, and Pawnee, among others. Furthermore, Kansas is the current home to 4 federally recognized native nations: the Prairie Band Potawatomi, the Kickapoo Tribe of Kansas, the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska, and the Sac and Fox Nation of Missouri in Kansas and Nebraska.
Many native nations utilize the western plains of Kansas as their hunting grounds, and others, such as the Delaware, were moved through this region during Indian removal efforts to make way for white settlers. It's important to acknowledge this, since the land that serves as the foundation of this institution was, and still is, stolen land.
We remember these truths because K-State's status as a land-grant institution is a story that exists within ongoing settler colonialism and rests on the dispossession of indigenous peoples and nations from their lands. These truths are often invisible to many. The recognition that K-State's history begins and continues through indigenous contexts is essential.
Please remember
these truths
because we still remember.
Thank you. You have found your way to the Teaching and Learning Center's Professional Development Series. We meet noon every week in real time over Zoom. We also archive these events. They're available for your asynchronous viewing if you go to our webpage. And if you come to enough events and do some reflections and things, you can actually earn a professional development certificate. And my colleagues have just dropped the link for information about that into the chat. You can earn that certificate either as a graduate student or as a faculty staff member. Real good for you. We'd love you to earn that. You can also potentially become a fellow of the TLC. And again, that link will tell you how to do that. Next week, we will be having a teaching chat. A teaching chat is a little bit more of a free-form discussion. And this year, our teaching chats are going to have kind of a primary topic. We'll always have the opportunity to talk about anything that's on your mind. But next week, we're going to talk about active learning techniques. So what I'm really hoping is everyone is going to bring their best, coolest stuff to share with each other. And then the list of things that I do and the things that I tell people about is going to get longer. So bring your coolest active learning stuff. I'll share some stuff, and lots of people are going to share some stuff. It's going to be awesome. But before next week, we have a really exciting week this week called Assessment at K-State. And for this, I'm going to turn this over to my colleagues at the Office of Assessment, who I'm very, very grateful are here to tell you about Assessment at K-State. Fred and Brad, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I want to first introduce Brad to you. Brad is our new Associate Director of Assessment. He took over for Shane Shellpepper from last year. So we're very glad to have him here. Brad is a graduate of K-State. He has, well, tell us where you got your master's and doctorate from.
Master's is from University of Oklahoma, and the doctorate is from University of Missouri.
And he was department head at what university?
Illinois Wesleyan University for a number of years.
So he has lots of faculty experience, lots of leadership experience, and now as a scholar in assessment, he brings that to our university and it helps us to move forward with the assessment process. Now, to this session today, we want to share with you what we in our Office of Assessment have to offer you, have to offer your faculty, your programs, and other units across the campus to work with the students to assess their contribution that we are making to the student learning, and the goal of using data that we can find from students' demonstrations of learning that are used to enhance our focused mission, the mission that you have in your program. Now, we hope that through this session, you're going to discover ways that the Office of Assessment can be useful to you as a teacher or as a unit director or a program director. And using this information, that you in your area might be able to find new ways to be able to enhance your decision-making that will impact students in a positive way. Now, as we progress through our session, I'm going to encourage you to put any questions you have in the chat box. We have it up, and we will try to address those questions as they occur so you can remember what they are. But at the end, we also will hopefully open your microphone and we can talk with a little bit more clarity of any questions you have. So let's begin this session with what the Office of Assessment has to offer to your program, your faculty, or your unit. Our office is here to provide guidance and feedback related to identifying that students are gaining something from your instruction, from your courses, or from this accumulation of courses that we call a program that leads to a particular credential. In other words, the degree that it comes. So when it comes to assessment of learning, one of the processes that we use here on everywhere to education, we use at K-State, is to combine scores together from multiple examinations and observations and to develop an average score of achievement. This is what we use in the evaluation process that's called grading. Now, that same data is used in student learning assessment, but this is a little bit different process than grading. The assessment of student learning process is designed to look at the specific components of knowledge and skills that are attained by students in your courses and across your program, and to identify the quality of learning that has been attained at any particular time. Then that data is to be used in this assessment process to provide faculty or the overall program with indicators of the learning qualities, to use these indicators to make decisions on how can we enhance instruction, how can we improve or adjust curriculum, or possibly place interventions that are going to help students succeed at a greater level. Now, what we try to help your programs with is, well, first of all, is designing learning outcomes, to be able to help walk through with your program to make decisions, have you make decisions on what is your purpose? Why are we teaching this course? Why do we have these set of courses in the curriculum? What do we want students to get from them? That's what the student learning outcomes are. We will help you and work with you into connecting these outcomes, mapping them across your curriculum, and then aligning and implementing assessment tasks through which the students then demonstrate their achievement, those learning outcomes. Then upon that, we can help you in your course and your programs to design some type of scoring device that will validly and reliably indicate the qualities of learning that as based upon the outcomes that you decide. So this is the type of thing that we want to offer your program and help you work through these parts of your assessment process to develop an effective assessment process for your program. See, our focus then is to assist you in designing the effective assessment and provide back to you useful data so you can make decisions toward enhancing student learning. Now, Brad's going to share with you a little bit more about the assessment process here at K-State.
So assessment at K-State begins with program leaders and faculty getting together to determine their overarching student learning outcomes, or kind of put another way, their overall goals for the degree program. And as programs put together their student learning outcomes, they align their work with the mission of K-State and any credentialing organizations. And we encourage programs and faculty to consider identifying student learning outcomes in 3 broad categories. Student knowledge and information that graduates should have a firm grasp of once they complete their professional degree. Student skills and abilities they will use directly in their field, and dispositions that reflect professional behavior and decision-making. Now, once programs have decided on their student learning outcomes, they then decide in which courses that the outcome will be taught and measured. And this is where you, as the professional, choose how students are presented the information and how it should be measured, whether it's an exam, It's a portfolio or a project or a capstone, just to name a few. So these course level outcomes are aligned to build on students' prior knowledge, skills, and dispositions, so that when they graduate, they can demonstrate and apply the program-defined student learning outcomes. And as we've kind of alluded to, faculty and program leaders identify multiple outcomes that students must demonstrate at some level to earn their degree. And each of these broader outcomes are made up of smaller criteria that is directly addressed by faculty in courses, by you. But the number of criteria that are addressed in each individual course is left to the discretion of program leaders and faculty. So one outcome is not necessarily addressed in just one course, but rather criterion may be addressed throughout the degree program over time, and students meet the program outcomes. Therefore, the work being done in your courses is quite vital, of course, to the student program success.
I hope you're getting this concept, and this is what we really wanted to present this for, is to recognize what we are here at the Office of Assessment. We don't want to be seen as someone who's telling you something that you need to give to us, the aspect of reports. It's the other way around. We consider our office a service organization to you. How can we help you to design assessment processes that are going to be useful to you, not useful to us? It's useful to you, and that's the process we want to be able to share with you. This is the assessment process at K-State that I'm going to share with you right now. And I want to, although many of you have experienced this, I think it's important to go over so everyone, the faculty, the program directors, understand how this process works across the institution. As Brad had mentioned, you as a program decide your outcomes. You decide as professionals, this is what this program is here for, what the students are to get out of it. Then you as a program will design these assessment tasks through which students intentionally demonstrate through coursework or educational experiences the ways that the extent to which they have addressed or can demonstrate the outcomes that you define. You collect that information through the assessments and then look together as a faculty to see to what extent students are achieving these particular outcomes at what particular level. Those discussions are extremely important because from those discussions, you can go take that information back to the faculty, back to the instruction, back to the curriculum sequence, and make adjustments and see what you can do to be able to improve that quality or to make sure you maintain the quality of achievement that is addressed. So this is the assessment process that is designed here at K-State. It's to be an internal review of the quality of learning that's occurring within your particular components designed around your purpose, why you're there. Now, once a year, there is a report that comes to the Office of Assessment, and this is not the Office of Assessment evaluating your program. What these reports are is to confirm that there is an assessment process which is ongoing and it is useful and it aligns with the institutional outcomes that you see there in the middle. From that, the Office of Assessment provides feedback back to your program. This is as a peer feedback, suggestions of ways that the assessment process might be able to improve, maybe possibly ideas that you hadn't thought about. And that feedback then that you can use to go back with your program and have this continual improvement of vitality and possibly even ways that we might suggest to enhance the validity and reliability of the measures that you use. Now, this is where technology comes into the involvement of the assessment process. The assessment office can provide you with guidance for your faculty and the overall program on technology that can facilitate both efficient and effective data collection. And then we help you take the data that you collect and put it in some format that then you can use to review and assess the quality of learning. So in essence, what we want to do is make your job easier. Our whole purpose is to have assessments be something that is ongoing and something that naturally happens. And we help you to automate the collection of this data so then we can give it back to you to be able to make your decisions and sort of take that off of your plate to make the process itself work for you in the best way possible. So this is where we help you to automate the data, to find ways to collect the data and to bring it back into a format that's more easily used to be able to review the student learning data. So the goal isn't for you to create a report back to us. The goal is to produce reliable data that upon which your faculty within your program can uncover the challenges students are having and then make decisions to address those challenges. In other words, continual improvement. So through the alignment, and this is what we help you with, to align these assessment tasks to assignments or the demonstrations of learning that happen within your courses, to be able to get the assessment results that come from that, compile it together, in which we often use through various different formats, so through Canvas, sometimes through Qualtrics, sometimes through other technology-based assessment systems. And we help you to collect that information, aggregate it, and give it back to you. That's what our office does. We help you to facilitate the automated data collection, but we give it back to you in various type of formats. Say in this format right here, where the outcome categories that you have decided for your outcomes, we'll be able to look at students' achievement at the places that you have designed that the students are expected to demonstrate a particular level. And then to identify in what areas students are achieving at higher levels or lower levels, so you can use that to make decisions. This is one of the type of visualizations that we provide back to you with your data. But the valuable component is not the outcome categories, but it's the components within the categories. So we can help disaggregate the data so you can look at each component part of the learning that is within an outcome. And as you can see here, there are individual components students are doing better at or maybe not as doing well. And the value of disaggregating the data is to be able to find out in what areas students are having small bits of challenges that you can then address again in instruction or readdress in your curriculum process. This disaggregation is nearly impossible to do by yourself. To be able to do that manually within your program, you don't have time. But we have these technologies that automate and make this easy for you to get the data directly back from the things you're already doing in class. Without the disaggregation, then some of this data or some of this information on the things students are having challenges with sometimes remain hidden in this aggregate of the outcome or some of the aggregate of the grade they're getting in the course. The value of assessment is in the disaggregation and identifying the achievements within component parts. We also provide the data in the variety of ways that your faculty might find useful. Sometimes it's those graphic formats like you saw, or maybe some programs find it more useful in a table format. We're able to take the data and give it back to you in the way that your faculty is going to be able to most often use the data. Now, one thing I want to mention here, it's sort of important, is what is the difference between grading? Don't we do that already? Here's the difference between the assessment process that we're discussing here and the grading process, which is valuable and it's essential, but it's not the same thing. Within any assignment that you have in a course, most assignments include more than just one learning component. It's multiple learning components. When we come up with the grade for that assignment, in general, we come up with an aggregate, a single grade, how they're doing on the assignment, which is an average. Then a course grade takes all the averages for each assignment and averages them together into a course grade. So it's an average of averages. Then a GPA is an average of those, an average of averages. Easily within that point, the specific aspects of learning sometimes gets lost in the translation. So the assessment process we help you with is to disaggregate that and define which of the specific components where in your curriculum the students are having challenges, so you can use this data across your program. I want to share with you what some of the visualizations that we can provide you with the data that we're able to work with you. Here's an example from music education. They happen to have an accreditation agency that has 6 different categories of learning that they have to prepare their teachers for. One of them is pedagogical skills. And within the pedagogical skills, there are 6 different components that they need to keep track of. And so this is the area that we're able to show them those particular achievements. If you notice at the bottom, there's this the different demographic categories, which comes from the student information system. We can connect your data with the student information system, so then you can start filtering through and identify, are there particular cohorts that are having more challenges with certain outcomes than another. For example, this is selecting those who are first generation students. And in this visualization set here near the bottom right for you, we see that in some of the categories, the first generation students are doing just as well as those who are not first generation students. But in some of the categories, the first generation students are demonstrating a bit of difference in the quality of achievement. That gives your program an opportunity to review that. Is there something in the curriculum or instruction that we might be able to address for this particular cohort, or whatever disaggregation that you want to be able to evaluate or analyze your data? Now, I want to share with you, this is the first time we've actually said this in public, that we are now creating a few new components to this visualizations that we're providing you. One of them is providing, and we're piloting it right now, a mechanism for you to be able to document the discussions and the review of your data right within the Power BI tables. So very soon we're going to be adding this button to the top of your tables, which will open up another window, which gives you the opportunity, each of your faculty individually or your committees that are looking at the data, to be able to review the achievement per outcome. A window will come up that you'll be able to select which outcome data that you're looking at. And when you select that outcome data, if it was reviewed in the past, say the year before, the review from your former year will be there. So you can see what goals you had planned for the year, and then go into that review and reconstruct your new current review for that. So it'll keep track over time, the changes that you've made in your curriculum, the decisions that you're making, goals you're making for the future. So you can go back and see what your goals were in the past. So you can keep for your program a chronological report of the decisions you made. Now, our hope is that this process of being able to evaluate your data within Power BI might be able to replace the reporting that happens in the fall. Each fall, a program reports on their achievement of their assessment process. Well, if they're already reviewing it right inside of Power BI, that becomes your annual report. Again, I said before, we want to try to make your job as teachers more effective, as programs more efficient, and make your job a little bit easier. Hopefully, we can use this process to be able to replace the annual report that happens in September or October, so that you're able to review at the times that are useful to you, and we still are able to keep track for the accreditation agency that every program has an assessment process that they are using to be able to make curricular instructional decisions And then you also have all of that documented within within this Power BI. So that's what's coming next. As I mentioned earlier, the process in our Office for Assessment is not designed for the Office of Assessment to evaluate your program. So if that's in your mind, get rid of that. We don't do that. The assessment process is designed so that each program will be able to review themselves on the data that they have and make decisions that can lead to program improvement and student learning achievement improvement. The reporting process is simply documentation that the assessment process that you have in your program is effective and used. Now, Brad's going to share with you some other new features that are coming to the assessment components on Power BI.
Yeah, so one Power BI feature that we are working to integrate into your outcome reports is the key influencers feature. This feature uses multiple regression and logistic regression in the background. You don't need any statistical knowledge to use these features. But these features will examine which variables are significantly predicting your program outcomes, which is pretty exciting. Programs can use this information to better understand how different demographics or program characteristics relate with higher or lower outcome levels, leading to hopefully more informed decisions around curricular improvement.
And what we're sort of hoping that you saw this in the bottom, we're able to identify the different demographic groups that are being assessed, that this can also be able to identify for you at what times in a particular demographic group is having more challenges than another. Not saying that, that they're not as good as the other, but to bring to your attention that, hey, here's a difference. You might as a program might want to look at these differences to see if there's actually something there that needs to be addressed, looking for an equitable education across all of the different component units.
And another feature that we are looking into is called Smart Analysis. This is an AI feature that analyzes your data and offers informed summary. So it takes all the data and automatically provides a summary for you. And faculty can use this tool to find key data points that they may have overlooked initially, or to possibly identify new outcomes and trends that they may have missed. So it's just another tool to help you analyze your data. One neat thing about this tool is that it can automatically regenerate summaries. So as you're kind of clicking around, selecting different demographic variables, different program characteristics, this summary will automatically renew itself, providing you new information depending on what you're looking at, what you've selected. So we hope this feature can play another helpful role in understanding your students' knowledge, skills, and dispositions.
Now, I want to bring to your attention that some faculty may not know this also. The Office of Assessment sets meetings and meets with every program and every unit across the institution each year to discuss the feedback, to discuss the process, and to provide any assistance that we can to the program to efficiently and effectively improve the assessment process of learning within the goals that you have for your program, and possibly to help uncover ways to improve curriculum, instruction, and the overall processes that might not be as evident just on the surface. We also encourage you to look at the other materials that we have on our website. The first one that you may not know is there, but is worth looking at, is what we call the assessment toolkit. In each of these categories, when you open up those pages, there are multiple resources that your faculty in your program can use to look at the basics of assessment, how to design outcomes, what type of measures are used across the K-State, effective measures in the different varieties of measures that can be used, ways that you can analyze those data, a whole variety of resources that you might find useful in this assessment toolkit. We also have training, video training, and tutorials in PDF form as well on how to use Canvas, all the different components of Canvas, ways to use Qualtrics in student learning assessment, and incorporate especially Qualtrics or other external forms of assessment with the external agencies, such as when we put people out into internships and how to be able to collect scoring data from some of those external components and be able to aggregate it together. And then Power BI training on how to read tables, how to create Power BI tables if you want to do that, or just to let you know how Power BI puts things together, that we're able to provide these tables to you. And these are constantly being revised. I will let you know that most of the Canvas training is all going to be reconstructed this fall, because we have just moved into the new outcomes, and eventually we'll move into some other different components which are new to Canvas. So you're going to be seeing some new things that in Canvas that you didn't see in the same way that you saw them before, and we'll have instruction on how to use those. We also provide for you different data sources that you might find useful within your program, such as a senior survey and alumni survey, which that data is not only university-wide, but can be filtered down by college and filtered down even further by the students in your program to see what they're saying about your program, about their experience in your program, etc. We also have the GTA Communication Survey, which is for the graduate teaching assistants to get feedback from their students and to be able to help them to be able to communicate more effectively with them. And then other services and data sources that we have are all available, that I encourage you to go and look at these different sources and see what might be useful. I'll let you know that for the senior survey and alumni survey, we also offer your program to be able to include specific questions about your program on those surveys. In other words, it will only add your questions to the students that were enrolled in your program. So when the survey comes out, they'll get the general survey questions, but the students from your program will get your specific questions that we then will collect for you and give you back the data. Again, we are here to serve you, to make to be able to give you data that's going to be useful to you. So this gives you a bit of an overview of what we do, what we trying to offer for your program and your faculty. So I do want to open this up to any type of questions that you have, issues that you might want to discuss, or ideas for us that we could help you in even more ways.
So Fred, I'll start with a question. I'll have 100 million questions. In a situation like this, I know there's a lot of things we can do, and a lot of things we can do at the institutional level, the department level, those kind of things. For someone who's new to teaching, where do they start? So kind of what's the foundation? What are the first things that they consider to make this entire assessment endeavor successful?
That is an excellent question. And the first answer I would say to that is to talk with your colleagues. If you're teaching a course in your program, that course is part of a larger curriculum. And that larger curriculum has program outcomes that this course is to somewhere along the way prepare the students at whatever point that is in their curriculum for whatever those program outcomes are. The first thing I would say as a new faculty, find out what your program outcomes are. And then look at your course to see where in the curriculum does it fit in, so you can make decisions on what you're going to teach. Because your course reasonably should fulfill at least some component of the overall program outcomes, which is the purpose for the students studying in the program. Then the second answer to that question, once you have figured out why is this course here and how does it fit into the overall scheme of the program, to then look at how your particular course, to say, okay, in this course, here's the level of achievement in these particular outcomes. I'm going to say that again because I think that probably went by. Determine what those outcomes are, but determine what level of achievement is expected at that particular point in your curriculum. Then you define how are students going to show you what learning means. This is where we can help you. Well, this whole process, we can help you with that, as well as, you know, the people in your program to know where they fit into the curriculum. But if you're not sure, what are different ways that we can use to have students demonstrate what learning is, then we can talk about that. We are very willing to come right to your offices and just to sit and listen. Why are you here? What do you want your students to learn in your course? How do you currently assess? We listen to assessment stories across the whole institution, and sometimes there's really, well, a lot of times, there's a lot of great stuff happening out there. K-State is really very good with assessment. And as a new faculty, you maybe haven't heard some of these things. And we're willing to share with what we can. I will mention this also, a little later this semester, we're going to present another session here in the professional development, which will be focused on faculty's effective assessment processes and as many varieties of assessment processes that you might be able to get ideas from. So talk with your faculty, know why you're there, why your course is there, how it fits into the overall scheme, what is expected of the next course in the sequence to make sure that you're preparing the students for where they're going to be going. Those are the things I would say is the areas that you'd want to start looking at.
So how do you know you're doing it right? So, you know, I'm teaching a class. I mentioned, you know, I just did my first exam. When I'm looking, you know, at that information, how do I know whether we've done well enough as a collective, me and my teaching, them and the learning as dictated by the assessment? Is there a threshold, a cutoff, some indicators that I should be taking into account to see whether or not things are going right or whether I need to change trajectory?
The first question I would put to that is, what is right? I would say the answer to right is the extent to which students can take what you've taught, demonstrate in some way how it makes sense to them, and use it. In other words, apply it in some way. I'm going to say something I say in a lot of sessions before. When we're looking at assessment, we should, in general, not be assessing what we taught. Let me say that again. When we're looking at assessment, it isn't the goal to make sure that we are assessing what we taught. We should be assessing to find out how are students making sense of what we taught. In other words, what does it mean to them? And even more importantly, when they come to that understanding, how are they going to put it into place? This is the relevance. Whatever you're teaching and whatever you want them to understand, to what extent can they then make use of that understanding? So that means might mean going beyond seeing to see if they can remember what we taught, to addressing new forms of assessment that require students to take that knowledge that they've attained and to somehow show you the extent to which they understand what it's used for, or why it's there, or what it means to them. And these are questions that you just can't get off the internet, or just, you can't copy those. It's a meaning that they have, and those are a little bit more challenging, but probably more profound than can they remember what you said 2 days ago.
So I'm gonna follow that up with a couple of questions, and if anyone else has questions, please feel free to jump in. I just try to think practically minded. So if I have a class of 100 students, how many have to kind of reach that point? Because I'm not so optimistic to think that every single student is going to be able to demonstrate, you know, the assessed outcome as well as they should, right? There's going to be some loss there. So how many? And then I'm kind of wondering how this assessment scales up to larger classes.
Yeah, what you started asking right there is this aspect of evaluating your course or evaluating how good it is. Yeah. Okay. I would like you to reconstruct the thought of assessment, is to uncover what is the result. So in your outcomes, I would say that here's what we want for everyone. Here's what we want everyone to get to. But you know that most aren't going to get there. But here's this threshold, that's your goal. Now you want to find out below that or above that, to what extent are groups of students attaining? Eventually, you're going to have every student somewhere in the component. You might have, here's my outcomes and here's the expectations, and this range of achievement or demonstration it's acceptable. This meets your expectations for the course. Then below that might be a range that says, okay, this is all right, we can let that go. They're developing, they're not quite there. Maybe there's a level below that saying, okay, they're slowly demonstrating an understanding that it's not even close. Then there's a level that says, okay, below this level, it's just simply not acceptable. There might, above that meeting level, there might be some that are just demonstrating far more complexity of understanding than you even expect for that course. So that would be the exceptional type thing. In general, that's what most of the assessment structures that programs are using is, here's the category and you as in that course, or you as across your program are the professionals. You know what you expect, and that's your rigor. We call that the rigor. You decide the rigor of your course or your outcome, and then what does it mean to do better, and what's almost there, what's not quite there, what's totally unacceptable. And then you create some type of a scoring device that's going to be able to find those indicators to see where are they in whatever particular component that are valuable for students to demonstrate their learning. So yes, I don't have an answer to saying, okay, how do you know what's the best? Well, you do. You as a program make those decisions all the time.
And I appreciate the realism of your answer. So my second part is, you kind of talked about the assessment really getting at students making meaning of the information, which I really like. And I find this is much easier in smaller classes than larger classes. So I'm kind of wondering how we kind of scale that idea up for a class. Like my intro class has 212 students in it. So how do we scale that idea up for 200 students to allow them to do something personal with the information, to get at a deeper level of meaning that I can actually process logistically?
That's an excellent question. And here's the best thing I can answer for you. There are some things you actually can observe through maybe even multiple choice questions. Maybe that's the only way you can get it because your class is too big to do anything else. Then you have to come to this realization that this is all I can assess. I want to do these other things, but I can't. I mean, I can't talk to each individual. I can't see 200 people doing a class presentation or whatever it might be. So you make the decision. You're going to have to figure out what is possible. Maybe you have 5 or 6 different outcomes that you want to address, but there's no way you can assess this one. That's all right. What are your expectations? What is possible to be able to identify levels of achievement, whatever you define as the expectation of learning. And that's what you collect. Not every program is going to be able to have the same assessments, and we shouldn't. Each program has each course has different challenges that they have to overcome. The most important thing is whatever data you're collecting, make sure it gives you insight into learning that maybe isn't easily just seen when you're looking at here's how they're doing here's the grades they got across this course. That's important. That tells you things. But is there anything you can get from the data you've already collected to be able to get down a little bit deeper to, okay, why did they get a B plus and not an A? Or what is the component that's holding them back? That's one thing we want to help you with that is sort of difficult to do without technology. But if we can pull those specific point measurements out of the tool that you're using, the scoring device, then we can help provide that data back to you to be able to say, no, it's in this, out of these 5 things, this is the one category that students overall are having more challenges with. Then you decide what you're going to do with that. Maybe says, that's okay, I'm going to keep teaching. Or you say, they don't have this quite yet, I better go back and redo something else because that's important to know for the next thing. Again, you're the professional. The expectation is this data is for you. The assessment process needs to be designed so it's useful, gives useful information that you don't normally see in your everyday work. That's the best thing I can explain. At least that's what we're hoping to be able to help you with.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So anyone else who has questions, thank you for indulging mine, but other questions from the audience. And if you don't want to say it out loud, you can drop it in the chat and I'll be happy to read your question for you.
I do have a question. So first of all, this is very helpful as a new faculty member to know what resources are available at K-State related to assessment. At my previous institution, I facilitated our faculty developing student learning outcomes and curriculum mapping. And so I've been kind of tagged here to also do that in my program. So I'm curious, I see there's training opportunities on the website in terms of getting additional training for Power BI, but how do you actually get access to the Power BI system to be able to use that? Because it seems like a really useful tool, but how do faculty, what do we need to do to go about getting access?
The first thing you would want to do is to contact us. And we can tell you what data is already collected. Now that with Power BI, there is, in Power BI, just as far as the technology, it doesn't hold any data. Power BI only goes and pulls data out that exists. So then what we would want to do is work with your program is to say, what data do you want to collect or what do you already have? And how can we collect it efficiently without asking the faculty to do any extra work? So you maybe in your class, then this is where we would discuss it saying, in your class, here's the type of scoring that you do. And these component parts of the scoring, they match these particular outcomes that the program has. So then we then will work with you individually, showing you how do you take the scoring device that you use right now, and how do we connect it to these outcomes? So then the data will be pulled into Power BI and you can use it to visualize that. So that is what we do with every single program across the institution. We work with you, asking you questions, and we find the most efficient way to fit within the way you do your work.
A lot of that work's done through Canvas too. So we'll find which ways you're grading and evaluating, and we'll connect outcomes in Canvas.
It's important to know that we cannot go in and grab your grades.
Yeah.
We can't get to them. No. You have to be the one who makes the connections, and we show you how to do that.
Yeah, we simply pull the data and we visualize it for you through Power BI.
What other questions do people have?
Good question.
Well, I do want you to know that we are anxious to work with individuals as well as programs. Yep. We come right to you, whatever questions you have, we try to answer. And if we can't, we say, oh, we can't do that. But there's a lot we can do for you.
I saw a part of a chat comment. So I just wanted to see if that came through. All right, it did not. It's gone. All right, well, please thank me. Please help me. Don't thank me. Please help me in thanking our wonderful speakers today, Fred and Brad, coming from the Office of Assessment. Really appreciate the guidance they provided, not only today, but in the future. And one of the things about our series is not only to kind of give you, this is all we know about something, is to help create connections and networks. So knowing that Fred and Brad are part of our awesome Office of Assessment, I think is a tool we want to use moving forward. So I really appreciate kind of making that introduction today. We'll have a post-event survey that's been put in the chat. We'd love you to complete that. And then next week, we'll have our teaching chat where our primary topic will be active learning techniques. And what I would like to have that be is a lot of us sharing a lot of the cool things we do in our class. And I want to steal all the good ideas from you to use in my classes moving forward. And hopefully you'll do the same for some of our colleagues in here. So if anyone has any questions or anything, I'll stick around for a minute to talk about them. For instance, why we have 2 TEDs. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you next week at noon. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.